agriculture or agribusiness experts. So I expect to learn quite a lot today from the panelists. But during the conversation today, I would really like to focus on opportunities for collaboration and partnerships between France and Kenya in order to provide concrete solutions to the food security challenges, how to better work together to enhance agriculture-led economic growth in Kenya, what kind of fruitful partnerships can be implemented, how to build sustainable market systems through public-private sectors engagements, what are the innovations that could inspire us to tackle food insecurity. So these are some of the topics that I would like to discuss this morning. But before we start, let me introduce to you our esteemed panelists who are joining me today on stage. First, I would like to start with Ms. Thule Lenneiye. So, Thule, over the last 2 years, you have served as the Agriculture Transformation Office Coordinator at the now Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. You are charged with coordinating the transformation agenda in the agriculture sector through fostering partnerships and catalyzing digital innovations and their adoption to transform sector operations for optimum service delivery. You began your career in Zimbabwe as part of a startup that implemented the first electronic voucher subsidy program on the continent, a precursor to the successful Zambian electronic subsidy voucher program. And during this time, and through your other experiences as well, including entrepreneurship, you gained unparalleled experience in what would become the digital transformation space. Over the years, you have established your expertise in the area, making you a sought-after leader in the digitalization of agriculture. Welcome, Thule, and thank you very much for joining us today. Can we get all of applause for Thule? Let's do the applause first, because at the end, you never know. Then, I have on the panel, I'm very happy to welcome Ms. Lydiah Muthoni. Lydiah, you are a program manager at the Toolkit iSkills, where you manage and coordinate the day-to-day operations of Lenneiye Farm, which is a demonstration farm. You offer trainings for farmers on the use of technology, conservation of biodiversity, organic farming, solution to farming challenges, and equipping youth with practical skills in the agri-value chains and initiation to high-return agribusiness ventures with low capital investment for dignified livelihoods. You have over 15 years experience working with USAID-funded projects in coordinating, managing, and promoting economic resilience among vulnerable communities, providing expertise in livelihoods, nutrition, agriculture market systems development, public and private partnerships, and capacity building activities. Thank you very much, Lydiah, for joining us this morning. Dr. Bimal Kantaria. You are the Managing Director at Elgon Kenya Limited, one of the largest companies in East Africa, employing over 600 people. The company can trace back its origin since 1898. The company currently has partners in Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Zambia, and is the largest agriculture inputs company in East Africa. You have won several local and international awards, including the Environment Respect Awards from DuPont Chemicals. And you are also the chairman of the Agriculture Sector Network, ASNET, which is the umbrella body representing the collective voice of the agriculture sector in Kenya. ASNET also serves as the Agriculture Sector Board for KEPSA. Mr. Pierre Fauvet, Pierre, you are the Managing Director of Creadev Africa, the evergreen investment structure of the Lenneiye family, whose leading businesses include Auchan or Decathlon. Creadev operates worldwide with offices in Paris, New York, Shanghai, and Nairobi. Over the past 15 years, you've been supporting, advising, and investing in innovative companies in Europe, West, and East Africa. You launched Creadev Africa in Nairobi in 2016, and you now focus on expanding its investment reach across the continent. Creadev Africa partners with visionary entrepreneurs by investing and supporting long-term growth of Pan-African champions, facilitating access to essential goods and services to the many, thanks to innovative solutions. Welcome. Mr. Benjamin Deruel, so I will say it in English, Benjamin. You are the Chief Operating Officer at Dudutech Integrated Pest Management and also a member of the Dudutech Board of Directors. You are based in Naivasha. You have worked for In Vivo Group for over 7 years, first in Mexico and also in France, where you worked as International Finance Controller for Bioline Agrosciences, the Integrated Pest Management Division of In Vivo, and you were based in Paris. At Bioline Agrosciences, you've been involved in several projects, including the creation of the subsidiary in Spain and the implementation of new financial systems in France, the UK, the US, and Spain. You also supported a number of major investment projects, such as the construction of biofactories in Spain and in the US. Welcome, Benjamin. And last but definitely not least, Mr. Vincent Abt. Vincent, you are the Agriculture and Food Counsellor for East Africa and the Indian Ocean at the Regional Economic Department of the French Embassy in Kenya. You are an agriculture engineer and you hold a PhD in management sciences. You have been working for more than 20 years for the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Sovereignty in France and overseas. And before moving to Kenya 3 years ago, you were the advisor of the French Minister for Crop Production, Budget and Innovation. Thank you, Vince. So that is all for the introduction. Welcome again to all the panelists, and thank you for making the time to participate in this conversation. So before we start the discussion, I would like to briefly give the floor to Vincent Abt for a short reminder. I'm not sure that you will be able to see the screen with the sun, but Vincent knows the topic by heart anyway, for a short reminders on the key facts and figures of the agriculture sector in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Laure, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Just in a few words, because experts are here, so just to give some figures already. Laure told a lot about agriculture, the importance of in the GDP, the importance in terms of employment. But just to have in mind, and just to introduce the discussion, agriculture in Kenya is very diverse in terms of ecosystem, diverse in terms of production, livestock, agriculture. And as you can see, there are so many crops, so many production, and I don't know if there is something that can't be grown in Kenya. So we can find everything. You have an idea? So this is the map, and I think it's pretty similar. I won't explain all the figures, but pretty similar to France. That means that a lot of diversity adapted to different agro-systems. And for sure, it's not exactly the same climate, but we can find some interaction. And one thing also, two points. One point is to see also that agriculture is very important for Kenya for exports. More than half of the value of the exports is made of agricultural stuff, tea, horticulture, coffee for sure. So that means that it's a major economic sector for the export for the country. But it's also a key player in the region, key player in terms of imports, key player in terms of exports and processing. I would say that the heart of the processing sector, agricultural processing sector is here in Kenya, and important to know, and I guess we'll discuss a little bit more in the future. In terms of challenges, or maybe start from threats or things we have to integrate. First thing, and it's not typical from Kenya, it's in the region and more broadly in Africa, demography. So that means that there is a lot of people, so challenges for jobs, but challenges also for food. So that means that we have to feed everyone. So this is a big challenge. Another challenge is for sure climate change and short-term effect, but also long-term effect with area with more drier climate in the future or weather climate in the future. So this has to be integrated, and just the map on the right side just to explain that the area where we produce, for example, cereals will change in the future. So we have also to integrate this for the future. The context, I think, now the challenges are more updated today with maybe 3 factors. One was COVID. We had a lot of disturbing logistics stuff, increase of input prices and so on. This has been emphasized by the Ukraine war on fertilizer, on seed and so on. And for sure with the drought, so far with the 5th agricultural season affected by drought. And I think what is important is drought is not only in Kenya, it's in the whole region, so it affects also the local market and the local trades. So this is very important when you are depending on local imports also. Major challenges just to start the discussion, but I think it's good to have in mind that food security, it's not a simple complex, it's a multiple one, so that means it's availability, food availability. Do you produce something here to respond to the demand? Access, so is it affordable? Is it, do you produce food where there is needs? Utilization, what are the habits in terms of consumptions? We know Gali here, but the habits are changing, so poultry, for example, rice and so on. This is something that we have to integrate. And stability, this is also something important, to say that production is not stable, consumption is not stable, so we have to integrate this to be more resilient. So just key example, just to say that the last 20 years, the sector, agricultural sector, I think the performance is very good. If you look at the production, so production is the line here, it's growing. So it's growing, that means that this is something that is a good point, but consumption is growing even more. So this is also, we have to catch up this and to capture this trend. And for example, as you can see, on wheat or rice, production increased in the 20 last years, but consumption increased even more. So that's major thing. The way this increase of production has been done, I think mostly, and now you can see here, the growth in terms of surface is important. So major thing, but productivity, that means the production per hectare, is stable, and in some crops also decreasing. So this is an issue to tackle the fact that there is an import dependency that is pretty important on cereals, sugar, and vegetable oils. And even, for example, for vegetables, even vegetable oils, even if, vegetable oils, even if the production has increased in the previous years, the imports increased by 5 or 6. So this is more challenging. So issues, I would say, on productivity, on soil fertility, on sustainability, adaptation for sure, in the context, climate, but not only climate. Resilience, this is a key concept for us, and particularly in France also. And approaches, that means what is the good organization, the partnership between us. So just, this is a short introduction, but just to introduce the discussion and to showcase that I think there are a lot of things to do together. And so I give you the floor, Laure.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Indeed, there are a lot of things to do together, and this is what we are going to focus on today during the conversation. So indeed, thank you for giving us some context before we start. So as the panelists know, there are quite some topics I would like to cover with them today. So I know we're not in school, but I will definitely distribute bonus points for the panelists who can provide me with short, straight to the point answers to my many questions. And all this to save time for a dynamic Q&A session at the end of the conversation. So first of all, I would like to discuss, to get your reactions to Vincent's presentation, get a little bit of an overview of the sector and the bilateral relation with France. So I would like to start with you, Bimal. As we said when we introduced you, you've been in the field of agriculture for many years now, both with your company, Elgon, and as the chairman of ASNET. Could you please share your views about the evolutions of the agriculture sector in Kenya in the past year? What are the successes, and what would be the main challenges and areas of improvements that public and private players should focus on within this alarming context that I've mentioned?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Laure, for inviting me as well. So let me quickly put you in context where we've come from and where we are right now. Obviously, agriculture, as you know, is a devolved part of government. So it's now a county government responsibility, agriculture. And that's fundamentally changed agriculture in this country over the last sort of 10 years. And I know my friend here, Thule, will explain a little bit more about what she does at ATO. But because of devolution, a lot of things changed over the last 10 years. Lots of good, some bad. Plus liberalization. In the 70s, as you know, Kenya was quite a controlled economy. Over the last sort of 20 years, a lot of liberalization has happened. A lot of sectors that were previously controlled mainly by maybe cooperatives or government have opened up. And a lot more space has been opened up to private sector, including things like sugar. Sugar is now an open industry. It used to be controlled by 5 or 6 government mills. That has presented massive opportunity for private sector. But there are big fundamental issues that are going on like in any other country. We have a growing population, a population that is getting richer. So we're going from low income to middle income. And that of course means that younger people don't want to go into agriculture. It's still seen as an old person's game. So we have a natural evolution of things that are happening. Land use is becoming much more less agriculture. People, if you have a couple of acres, you rather do housing development than you do coffee and tea. So there are some big things that are happening in the economy which are just fundamentally changing and you can't do anything about it. But the positives are, and there are a number of good, strong positives that are happening. One is a little bit more current. We've seen the current government under President Ruto has kept agriculture as the #1 priority in his Kenya Kwanza manifesto. And everything he's talking about at the moment is about agriculture. And he's promised us 250 billion shillings, which is a massive amount of money. But that's just a catalyst, and we hope that he sticks to his word because really agriculture was underinvested. The second big thing we've seen is East Africa is now really one market. I mean, whether we like it or not, politically we may be different, but really 40% of our foodstuffs is now coming from Uganda, Tanzania, all the way down to Zambia. And that's, again, it's a huge plus point because you grow what you're good at, not necessarily what you think is good for the country. So just the business dynamics has meant that if it's cheaper to grow maize in Tanzania or Zambia, you might as well just import it from there. The third big one, which is excellent for Kenya, is we've become much more value-added as a country. So if you look at our manufacturing base, 60% of our manufacturing base is agro-processing. And that's rapidly growing. You talked about oil industry. I talked about sugar. Sugar is probably the fastest growing value-added industry in this country. There's a massive amount of investment going into it, primarily because it's private sector driven. So there's really good positive stuff. Of course, our exports of our horticulture, floriculture, we all know the success story. I mean, Kenya is really by far the biggest exporter around. We thought we had a threat from Ethiopia, but Kenyan businesses are so clever. We have such a talented workforce in this country, manpower, that any challenge thrown at industry in this country, we sort of get around it and we manage it. I think credit should go to private sector for being so resilient and so clever. So we have some very good positives coming through, I see, and I'm always an optimist, just the nature of the game is. But we obviously have this big climate change happening and we've seen this drought happening, so that's a big factor out there. We don't know what the repercussions of all that will be. But I'm, as a person, quite optimistic that the agriculture sector in this country, if they leave it to us, as in the private sector, and the government, Thule, steps out of agriculture, we'll be doing very well. Thank you.
So that's indeed thanks for making my transition, Bimal. So that's indeed a very good transition to give the floor to you, Thule. Thule, now, the floor is yours. Could you please explain to us what is the roadmap of the ATO and what would be your top priorities to achieve this 100% food security objective?
Thanks, Laure. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. So my name is Thule Lenneiye. I'm the Agriculture Transformation Office Coordinator in, like I said, the name change, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. So we're driven by a 10-year growth and transformation strategy. So I won't go into those details because there's 9 flagships. That's the roadmap. We're looking from supporting SMEs, agribusiness-driven SMEs, 1,000 farmer-facing SMEs, making sure that we continue to provide adequate and quality inputs to our farmers. And of course, as you heard, His Excellency has pronunciations on how we're going to do that. But for this forum, I think it's critical to look at how is it we're looking at government creating an enabling environment for private sector to continue to grow and hopefully thrive, like Bimal, in terms of agro-processing, agricultural production. We have a significant program, hopefully launching by the end of the year, the Land Commercialization Initiative, where we're going to put up at least 10 sites of publicly owned land for long-term leases for food production. So it can be, it's ranging from, of course, our staples. I mean, we do have a demand for maize in the country and other grains, but we are trying to move the Kenyan plate from focusing on single grain food products, especially in our unga, to a multi-grain product, and you'll soon be seeing some initiatives coming out on blended flour. The second is to make sure that we have enhanced strategic food reserves. And the understanding is, and the acceptance now actually with this new administration is that this should be supported by private sector and not be government owned, right? So, the intention is to look at how do you work with the private sector to work with NCPB, build more warehouses, increase the silos available, and just to make sure food is more widely available. The third one is on local agro-processing. One of the critical areas we're looking at is setting up 3 agro-processing hubs. We've already identified one in Egerton and another one, I know we're just having a chat with Mani on Galana Kulalu, looking at it as a center for food processing rather than only just growing food items, and bringing in private sector, a lot of private sector. And so very soon we'll have master plans developed for those by the end of the year. And then, what was the last one? Oh, digitalization of services. So it's something that we work with Vincent quite a bit. One of them is with Airbus, a French company, to establish digital advisory services. But this is a drop in the ocean. We're 47 counties. This is only in one county. And, Ministry of Agriculture is no longer doing the extension work itself, where it's responsibility of counties, but we're encouraging them through policies to work with private sector. So counterparts that Bimal works with, in terms of making sure farmers understand how to use fertilizer, conservation agriculture, using Dudu Tech, for example, some of their products, and of course an early warning system. I think where we have sorely lacked is setting up a national emergency warning system to alert us when there's a drought coming or floods are coming. The issue of desert locusts, yes, it was the worst that we've seen in 70 years, but we now need to be a little bit more proactive, and that's the work that we're making sure we're creating the foundations on. So those are our priorities. Thanks.
Thank you, Thule. So yeah, definitely many avenues for many, so you get as many applause as Bimal, as we can see. So definitely many avenues for collaboration, and you mentioned the cooperation with Vincent and the French embassy. So once again, thanks for making the transitions for me. It's perfect. I love it. So Vincent, so as the Agriculture and Food Counsellor of the Regional Economic Department of the French Embassy in Kenya, could you please elaborate a little bit more on the bilateral cooperation between our two countries?
The presentation, I think, maybe on cooperation, just first of all, I think the key players here, the key partners on the public side.
Don't your microphone, Vincent.
On the public side and on the private side, I think are here today on the table. So I think this is a pleasure for that, and it's good to count on key players on that. Just on food security, one thing is to say that food security, that doesn't mean that you have to be totally autonomous and close the border. Food security, I prefer the term food sovereignty, as the ministry is now named in France. That means that you have to build resilience to be sure that you always keep exchange with partners, For sure, you have to be more independent in terms of food crops and so on, but there is a need to exchange, to trade, to exchange innovation, to exchange solutions and so on. So it's keep open. So this is part of what we are promoting abroad, and particularly through the farm initiative launched in March, to say keep the market open, try to sustain countries that are in a difficult way today, but also promote a sustainable production system, food system, and in that there is a strong partnership that is feasible. In Kenya, I would say, for sure we are not funding a lot the sector by the public funds, but we try to support the dynamic of the private sector and to put money on some interesting approach in order to bring solutions and to make them feasible or adapted in Kenya. And maybe two examples on that. One, Thule mentioned it. I think we are very happy to work on this solution. And it's very updated. One was with Airbus ATK in Viga County to better monitor fertilization with remote sensing, with agricultural modeling at the farm level, but also at the county level, to have a better advice, to reduce the needs of fertilizer, and also to have an idea about food security at the county level. So this is very updated. We started before, but just to say that, and particularly on maize, this is very updated so far. So happy to continue on this collaboration. Another collaboration, which is also updated, funded by the French Development Agency. The first one was funded by the National Treasury. This one is from the French Development Agency. Is, for example, to support FERT. This is an NGO working with the Cereal Grower Association in several parts of Kenya. I think it's a very long-term partnership, and it's very interesting to promote good practices, but also how to structure the sector to make the farms work together, but also to aggregate the production. And this is also very updated, and I think experimentations on the field at this level could be also something interesting. So those are two examples, but there are many. And
Thanks, Vincent. So I would, speaking also, no, okay, sorry. Speaking of businesses with a social impact, NGOs, and supporting also sustainable agriculture, Lydiah, I would like to ask you the next question. So you are a program manager at the Toolkit iSkills. I would be interested now to hear your feedback after the start of this panel. And also, could you tell us a little bit more about your activity at the Toolkit iSkills, and especially your organic farming pillar? So what are the main challenges that you want to address through this specific activity?
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. Yes, my name is Lydiah Muthoni, and I work with an organization called Toolkit iSkills. Toolkit iSkills is a social enterprise that was developed back in the year 2014 with the main purpose of skilling youth and women in 4 thematic areas, that is construction, renewable energy, digital skills, and organic farming. And I believe I'm here to talk about organic farming. So I'll be a bit biased and talk about organic farming. The organic farming pillar at Toolkit iSkills was established back in 2020 at the height of COVID-19. And why was it established? It was for 2 main purposes. Number 1 was to attract youth to climate smart agriculture, and also for creation of green jobs in the agri value chains. And we looked at the young people, because we target youth and women that have got skills in agri value chains, but they have no access to land, they have no access to new technology, they have no access to capital, and we initiated a demonstration farm around Kikuyu. And when we established that demonstration farm, our main purpose was to give these young people that are well equipped with knowledge, but we don't have hands-on experience. When you tell them to go to the farm, they may not even have the equipment to do that. They also lack access to land. So that was a disconnect. And we thought, as Toolkit iSkills, then a demonstration farm would come in handy. And so far, over 1,000 youth that comes from all over Kenya. We've seen them come to our place and learn on organic farming, looking at all from end to end of the agri-value chains. We are looking at production. We show them how, looking at horticultural production, livestock breeding, agroforestry, how to do drip irrigation, how to do composting, how they can be able to do vertical gardens for where communities are limited of space, where they can come up with pyramid gardens and also hanging gardens across the value chain. After the production, we also include them, or we are able to also take them out there where they are able to learn other technologies that we may not be having at our demonstration site at Kikuyu. And we are happy to see them flourish. They came in with just the knowledge, but by the time they are leaving the farm, they have now the know-how, the hands on deck, and they are able to do so much across the agri-value chain. So as Toolkit iSkills, we are happy that when we look at what the industry demands and coming up with young people that are well-rounded to be able to do all that which needs to be done when we talk about agri-value chain. So in a nutshell, that's what we are doing at Toolkit iSkills, and mostly at our Lydiah demo farm. We call it Lydiah. Lydiah is a nutritious demonstration farm at Kikuyu, and currently, because this has really attracted many young people across the country, we've also scaled up at a place called Dogoto, where we have a 7-acre land, where we want also to duplicate or replicate what we are doing at Lydiah farm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia, and congratulations on this initiative. I would now like to move to the second part of my conversation, and I would like to focus on investments and private sector engagement. So, Pierre, you represent Creadev, which is a French investment structure based all around the world, as I mentioned in your biography, including Nairobi. So one of your main sector of investment is access to food, and you are currently the #1 shareholder in Twiga Food, a Kenyan technology-driven company that connects consumers, vendors, and suppliers, providing access to high-quality foods, products, and retail services. So could you tell us a little bit more about your investment thesis? Why did you see a potential for investment in the agri-food sector in Kenya specifically?
Thank you, Laure, and hello everybody. Super happy to be here. So why? So just because of our DNA, because of the need, and because we have great solutions in Kenya, in the country, and over the continent to answer the need. So why our DNA? As you rightly mentioned, we are an evergreen investor. Our job is to partner with great entrepreneurs by investing money and more than money, so that they can build Pan-African champions. The one that facilitates access to essential services and goods. And because we're backed by the Lenneiye family with Auchan, food is top of our priority. So basically we're looking for, across the value chain, from sustainable farming to local distribution at this solution. So food is top of our priority and the need is massive. So why there is strong potential is maybe because there is massive need. So Vincent and Bimal and Thule, all of you spoke about the current food security crisis, and even more than that, I was looking at figures recently, and 60% of disposable income is spent on food today in Kenya, which is 3 times than what we have in Europe, and so that's a massive need. And you have this situation where disposable income is lower than in other countries, and access to food is more expensive. So for instance, 1 ton of tomato in California is $100, I believe. In Kenya, it's 4 times higher, it's $400. So lower income, higher price, and Kenya is not bad versus, I checked Kinshasa was $3,000. So you see the big making issue. Good news is that you have local solutions, and you mentioned Twiga, so I'm going to insist on Twiga. Twiga is a kind of a one-stop shop solution for informal retailers, and today supplying tens of thousands around Nairobi and in Kenya, tens of thousands, so that's a lot of informal retailers in sustainable fresh fruits and vegetables and FMCG products. And this is a type of solution that has solving 2 key pain points on the market. The first one would be lowering prices. Before Twiga, you had like 5 to 7 layers of middlemen between the producer and the informal vendor, and with solution like Twiga, you have only one. And the second point is basically solving the post-harvest losses. 37-40% of everything that's produced in Kenya is lost somehow, and having simplified traceability systems and so on, thanks to data, enables to solve that. So I'm a bit biased here because I speak of Twiga, but I'm sure there's plenty of solutions across the continent, across Kenya, that should attract private investors like Creadev to be supported over the long term. I'll pause here.
Thank you, Pierre. So indeed a great example of collaboration between investors, but also in the target of empowering local private sector. And this will lead me to you again, Thule, because the ATO is a strong support mechanism for the transformation agenda, and is also notably in charge of boosting private sector engagement for increased investment in agriculture. So, in your view, is private sector and private investment commitments the key to achieve food security or sovereignty and better resilience in the country? And what would you be looking at in terms of cooperation with private sectors and private and foreign investors, for example? Is it financing solutions, technical expertise, transfer of skills, co-investment? Tell me.
Thanks, Laure. I think the short answer is yes, and all the above.
Okay, next.
On to the next panelist. So, look, I challenge Creadev maybe to work with incubators and accelerators, because we want to see a lot more tweakers, right? We don't want to just see one. And I think that's part of the challenge we're seeing. Yes, we are the Silicon Savannah, and we have a lot of ag tech solutions, but they're staying quite small, right? So they're not having the impact that we would like to see. And whatever it is that government needs to do, I think it's critical that we keep the communication lines open. And we need to keep getting more financing, more technical expertise, continual support from Vincent's team, for example. I don't think he's heard, yes. And just because part of it is that we have a lack of skills, right? So even when you looked at Twiga, I know it took a long time. It was quite a long assessment, and looking at the very few who can make the mark, right? So how do we then get a lot more across the line, even if it's not a unicorn, it's maybe people who are able to increase the number of people participating in agriculture and agribusiness. I think that's critical, right? I mean, we talked about it. Most of our youth are unemployed. How do we then bring them into agribusiness? Maybe not so much in agriculture themselves, but there's things like, as Vincent mentioned, horticultural products and projects that youth are more interested in. So for me, it's across the spectrum. And so, like I said, we have a number of flagships that are focused just on private sector engagement. Yeah.
Thanks. Speaking about private sector engagement, Vincent, could you please comment a little bit more on the French presence in the agriculture sector in Kenya. So what kind of companies are already in the country, and what do they bring to the table apart from capital?
First of all, I think I'm very happy to see how the situation is going. Just I've been here for 3 years, and so many projects are ongoing so far, and I think the presence of French enterprises in Kenya doubled during the last 5 years, something like this. So this is very interesting. So I think we count about 30 to 40 companies here. Sometimes it's one people, sometimes it's more. It's a processing unit. It's as you see here with Digitech, but the dynamic is here. So I think this is interesting to underline. So that's why also we set up last year a French agro club. So we are with Business France and the French Chamber of Commerce managing this group, and I think it's a good thing for different reasons. Bimal was there for the lunch, and it's a good reason to gather all the French partners, but also to showcase to the French partners and to the Kenyan partners what can be done together, and the idea is through the French Chamber of Commerce to associate those Kenyan companies. So what are those companies doing? Some of them are doing trade, some of them are doing giving advice, some of them are off-takers for beans and so on, some of them are distributing products, some of them are producing flowers or other crops. Some of them are providing inputs, either importing or, producing here. And for example, on seeds, three main companies. Lenneiye is with HM Close is producing seeds for export. We have RAGT, we have Technisam also here to provide new solutions. On fertilizer, there is a joint venture from here with Baraka Fertilizer and the group Timac Agro Roulier. So they bring also organic solution on board with existing solution. This is one example, and for sure on biocontrol with Dudutech and InVivo, with also Kenya Biologics and Fauvet. So this is interesting to look at those partnerships and its investment. And I don't forget the processing side also with, for example, Le Saf, who is setting up a new plant factory here. So it's diverse, and happy to see that more and more investment are more important in the country, and so make, I think, would attract, I guess, more stakeholders, more partners, and even investors or expertise.
Thank you, Vincent. And let's go now in more detail of a concrete example of the French presence in Kenya with you, Benjamin. So, creating in 2001, Dudutech is Africa's leader in integrated pest management. In 2021, the company was acquired by Bioline AgriSciences, a subsidiary of French group InVivo. This acquisition has paved the way for Bioline to become a major player in biocontrol at an international level, and it was also Bioline's first and so far only acquisition in Africa. So could you tell us a little bit more about your activities and this investment opportunity for Bioline, and why Kenya?
Thanks, Laure, and morning everybody. Let's just speak a bit about our activities and who we are. So Bioline AgriSciences is part of InVivo Group. InVivo Group is a French union of agricultural cooperatives aiming to provide a sustainable solution for farmers. Farm input solution, as well as farm input solution. Farm input solution, we get, just to give you an example, we get a grain trading activity, we get a milling activity, we get industrial bakery activity, just to speak a bit about the weight supply chain. And just an example on the barley supply chain, we get one of the biggest companies in the malt industry with our division Souffle. That's one end of the supply chain, but now if we go to the other end of the supply chain, if we speak about farm inputs, In Vivo Group set the umbrella brand called Bioline as the division to deal with farm input solution in the whole value chain for farmer, from buying to seeding, to feeding the crop, to protecting the crop, and then managing, monitoring the crop. Just for example as well, seeding the crop, we get leadership presence in France and in Brazil. In France, a company called Semence de France. Buying, we developed a distribution model in order to buy bulk products to get affordable price for the French farmer. Monitoring, managing, we get some IT division who build some little ERP or software for the farmer to manage their farm. Like some example as some app that we can get here in Kenya. But now let's today focus on the protecting crop division, which is the one I'm working for, called Bioline Agrosciences. What does Bioline Agrosciences do? Basically, we looked at how a crop naturally behaves in its environment to fight against pest attack, drought shortage, disease attack, and we try to understand this natural behavior. Let's take an example. If you are in the wild and a population of a certain mite is developing, you would naturally think that the natural predator of this mite will naturally increase its presence because there is plenty of food there. You know, it's basic food chain. We all eat something or someone, and we are all the prey of something or someone. Our idea is to, and we are of course not the only one to do that, but the idea of Bioline Agrosciences is to look at this solution, make it industrial and turn it into a manufacturing scale, make this product line profitable. Yes, we are a private business, and then make it sustainable for the farmer who will sell this solution. Sustainable in terms of cost. Of course, this solution needs to be somehow close to the chemical and the traditional or conventional way of farming. Sustainable also in the sense of how do I protect my assets, which is the crop, how do I protect my employees by giving them good working conditions. So this industry is called biocontrol, just like in comparison to the traditional way or conventional way with chemical control. And one of Thule strengths is biopesticide. So you understood it. We look in the nature, what are the natural predators of some pests. We rear it into our manufacturing site, and we sell it to the farmer. So that Bioline Agrosciences, Bioline has now 5 sites in the world: California, UK, France, Spain, and since last year, Kenya in Naivasha. Why Kenya? I will answer why Dulutech. So Dulutech is a 20 years old company, formerly created by some flower grower, and at some stage, after 20 years, the former owner of Dulutech got the good idea to say, okay, if I want to leverage this company and put it to the next level, I need to partnership with the biocontrol experts, and it went Bioline, a French company owned by Vivo, came around the table and acquired Dulutech. So not indirectly why Kenya, it's more why Dulutech, why my company targeted Dulutech. Now we should ask ourselves and wonder, okay, why Dulutech is a Kenyan company and not located anywhere else in the region? And well, you already mentioned it. Kenya, a very powerful country in horticulture, strong business in flowers, which are very demanding in the control solution. Politics, currency, stability across the year. So the framing was here for Dulutech to raise, and it's not randomly that all the biocontrol leaders in the region are located in Kenya. Maybe something to mention as well to speak about the strength of it is speaking about foreign investments. I think that, okay, we can talk about cash, but also foreign expertise within the horticultural frame of Kenya is something important. A lot of my customers are Dutch, English, German company with agronomical skills that they could learn in Europe and now bring into Kenya. So I think it's also something important to mention.
Thanks a lot, Benjamin. And indeed, this is the topic I would like to cover now. Expertise, support, and opportunities for training, also partnerships. So Bimal, I know that at Elgon you already work with Lidiah, but I would now like to address you as the chairman of ASNET. Could you please share your views?
Thank you very much, Laura. So what I've done, I've broken it down into four sort of areas of the value chain in agriculture, and I think there's space at every level. So if you just look at the first one, which is at farm level, which I know Vincent is concentrating a lot at. Obviously, my friend here at Lidiah, these are opportunities at farm level. At that level, agriculture is massive, Laura. I mean, we're talking about 60% of the total employment in this country is at farm level. So there's inputs, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening and that most of these companies probably know about. But I'm more interested in what happens after farm level, which is even more exciting. The second one, of course, is the distribution. Once it's grown, how do you get it to the market? How do you get to the next stage of processing? A big gap there in terms of distribution. Our friends at Twig are doing it partly, but there's a whole bunch of room there, and I've seen there's not really a sophisticated level of distribution happening at that level. There's so many French companies who are excellent at moving product. When you go to France, you see these big trucking companies, big haulage companies. So there's massive room there. There's massive room of moving goods from within East Africa into Kenya and vice versa. So distribution is a big problem, and you can talk about the trucks itself, but also the technology and all that. The third one, which is very important, and we talked a little bit about it earlier on, is about the value addition. I mentioned earlier, our manufacturing base, 60% of our manufacturing base is agro-processing. Again, a huge space of French companies. Either you convert food into a finished product, so you can potatoes into crisps or potatoes into chips for KFC or whatever. Big room there. But simple things like machinery, tractors, all these kind of things where you add value, machinery for food processing. There's so much room there which I haven't seen many French companies involved there. It may be there, but I haven't come across them. But food is a major industry in this country. And I think I think our friend mentioned at the end, there are two specific markets we should look at. One is the local consumer market, where 95% of what we grow is consumed here or what we import. So the local consumption is massive, and you can see that the Kenyan population is getting richer. They have more disposable income to put into food. You mentioned 60% of the figure was phenomenal. But you can see just walking around Nairobi how many fast food joints are there. So there is definitely a degree of sophistication in what people want to eat. They want to eat healthier, so there's a market out there for the end product consumer. And of course, finally, it's about the export market, which is 5%, but obviously very valuable in tea and coffee, flowers, horticulture. Again, a huge space there for French companies to get involved in tea processing. Kenya Kwanza manifesto talks about 50% value addition of tea. At the moment, it's 5%. They want to take it to 50%. So we have now a tea board at ASNET talking about how do you bring added value into that sector. So every single chain, every single part of the value addition chain, there's room. And I think the market is changing. We're no longer looking at Kenya being a growing country. I mean, it might be slightly controversial to say, but I think we've missed that boat. We're no longer we're more a value-added country. We're more a consumer country. In Uganda, there's a saying in Uganda that says, if the Ugandans can grow it, Kenyans will eat it. Simply meaning that, Kenya has become a consumer market. Really, we're sucking everybody in from the region, and it's changing the whole model of agriculture in this country. And for instance, what Twiga Foods is doing now. Twiga Foods is clever. By the way, I'm one of your biggest suppliers, so I'm very happy with that, thank you. But you're growing your own, you're putting a big farm, you're putting a big investment in, now you're growing your own produce because unreliability of, the story. You're growing your own produce, you're taking it to your processing zones, and then you're distributing it. I mean, that's an extremely clever model. I mean, you're saving money throughout and you're making profit throughout the chain, so really an excellent model to look at. But again, there's plenty of room at every stage for French companies or European companies to step in. So I wouldn't necessarily focus on the growing part of it. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Bimal. And speaking of value addition, expertise and trigger. Pierre, I would like to go back to you to give a concrete example. How would you define your role as a foreign investor in the agri-food space? And I guess my question is, apart from the financial support, what do you bring to your portfolio companies?
Thank you, Laure. Well, financial support is key, first. As we bring significant dry powder on the market, we start with ticket between 3 to 30 millions, and then we do follow on between 30 to 100 and above 100 one day to become really Pan-African. But you're right, support beyond the dollar is even more important. And I guess there is 3 types of supports. There is the investor toolbox, things about governance, strategy, opening new countries, compliance, and so on. It's a fascinating topic, super long, super annoying for all of you, so I'm going to skip this one. And then there is the food-related specific support. So at family level, first, well, the ecosystem, we're a bit shy on numbers, but there is 800,000 employees in the full ecosystem of the Lenneiye family. And so basically, if you need one expertise, you will find it. And this is what we offer our entrepreneurs in Kenya and across Africa, is to say, well, doors are open. And just to give you the latest example, one of our company here wanted to launch private label products. And so we opened discussions with the head of private labels at Auchan, at Decathlon, and so on to say, hey, how do you do that? And this was a really fruitful discussions. And at some point, you can't copy-paste solutions because you need to understand the network of suppliers here and so on to see how you can develop such solutions. So that's the first point. And then at Creadev level, we have 18 companies that are innovative across the food security topics. And to give you a few examples, we have M2I, which is in the pheromone-based biocontrol solution, so very linked to DuTech. So we can generate those type of discussion. We have Innovative, with insect-based feed production. And we have Hungry Harvest, which is waste control. So all topics that our companies in Kenya want to learn about and to discuss about. But super important here, we speak about sharing expertise, but it's not only one way from France to Kenya, it's 2 ways. And I can give you as many examples of French CEOs coming, of our portfolio companies coming to Kenya, not to share expertise, but to learn. And this is super important. And not only within our portfolio, but for the full, that's why I'm super enthusiastic about all the startups, the scale-up ecosystem in the agri-food that I see in Kenya, is that there is a lot of leapfrog solutions where things are created here in Kenya and could inspire the way to do better in Europe as well.
Thank you, Pierre. And good to hear that this is really bilateral cooperation. Speaking of sharing of expertise, partnership, and collaboration, Lydiah, how do you think an organization such as the Toolkit iSkills could benefit from enhanced public-private cooperations programs with Kenyan, French, or even international organizations? So, in other words, to put it very clearly, how could we, as investors and public sector representatives, help you develop more sustainable farming skills? And are there any partnerships already in place that you would like to mention?
Thank you for that question. Yes, at Toolkit iSkills, we are looking for work-based training opportunities for our agri-graduates so that they can gain relevant skills in their different areas. Because the experience has shown us that there's a lot of the opportunities in the green economy. And I'm looking at you. Getting opportunities for my agri graduates because they have now the experience. First of all, they have the knowledge, they have the know-how. So what they are looking for is an opportunity to prove themselves as well as contribute to the food security and across the agri-value chains. Number 2, we are having young people coming from Nyandarua, Laikipia. Of late, we had the 7 that came from Kakamega. just to come and gain the practical experience at our demonstration farm at Kikuyu. And it's a good thing, but again, as Toolkit iSkills, there's the numbers we can be able to take. So we are looking at partnerships, how then can we be able to replicate this farm across 10 more other counties within Kenya. Number 4, there is need to establish a data bank or an online portal that can help us facilitate the link between the industry players in the agri value chains and the training institutions. Why? We are looking at what the market demands and the graduates that are coming from the training institutions. And sometimes there is a mismatch. When they come to Lidiah, they are able to do so much in terms of, one, there is access to the land, there is access to the equipment, and also the technology at hand. And again, I'm also looking at, this is a good start, this kind of dialogue, as we dialogue this morning. It's a way to go, but again, can we go a step further and organize job fairs for even our young people? And we showcase what we can be able to do and what they can tap into when it comes to green economy. Do we have partnerships already? Yes. I will first start with the demonstration farm that has really been home to many people, many graduates with agri background. And we work very closely with experts from the different value chain, the agri value chain, and this has come in handy. We have an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding with the Egerton University through their Center of Excellence, and they are giving us interns, and we give them back interns that are also hands on deck. We also have a partnership with Jobs for Africa Foundation that we are looking at export of our produce. Remember the demonstration farm, it's purely organic, where we are dealing with herbs, vegetables, and also the agroforestry, looking at the different tree nurseries, both fruit and wood. So we are also looking at exports for the produce that is being produced at the Lidiah Demo Farm. And of course, we have a partnership with our county government, given that agriculture is a devolved function. We work very closely with the ATDC, the Agricultural Training Development Centers around Kiambu. They really come in handy whenever we want our young people to go out there and learn and see how things are done. When we talk about value addition, we take them at ATDC, where they are able to learn the experience, to gain the skill. And of course, we have a network of farmers. We work closely with Hard in Eastern Africa, within Kiambu County, and also local community-based organizations that are also reaching out to smallholder farmers. And now I'm happy because we have Vincent, we have the Tech, and the rest of us, and ASNET, adding them to our network. Thank you.
So I hope it's only the beginning of the conversation for you, Lydiah, and I'm sure about that. So I would like now to move to the last part of our conversation and focus on innovation. Bimal, I would like to start with you. Recently, this year, actually, Elgon, Kenya, and the University of Nairobi signed an MOU, paving the way for the construction of the Agricultural Technology and Innovation Center at the College of Agriculture and Veterinary Services. These projects will strengthen innovation in agriculture and entrepreneurship. So could you tell us a bit more about this initiative and what are the main objectives?
Thank you very much indeed. The good news, of course, is that the agreement we signed, MOU, was witnessed by our very own Thule, so now she knows it's a legal document. So let me quickly tell you the background of this project. One, you know, when you interview university students when they come for a job at my company, what I did realize, a lot of them are very book smart. They were very clever intellectually, but very few of them had practical skills, which my friend here mentioned. They want street smart. So I thought I could complain about it and complain the government isn't doing anything about it, and you know, universities not, or just get on with it in my company and just find a solution. So we came up with two different avenues. One is we signed an MOU with the university to take on 20 interns every 6 months. We paid them for it. So the university, we jointly interviewed students. We took on, I think, 22 students we took on from the vet side and the crop side. They worked in my company for 6 months. They just finished at the end of October, the first cohort. Of that, I think we 7 or 8 students, we now took them on as full-time employees in my company. The other, you know, the rest of them, we're now giving them a certificate from the university and my company, Elgon. So that when they go for the next job interview, they have a certificate from our company saying XYZ had practical knowledge, and we'll explain what they did in my company. A lot of them went in the field, they did marketing, they did sales. If they were technical, they worked in our factory, they worked in our fertilizer factory, whatever they were good at, we found space for them. So the next 20 students we're now interviewing, hopefully from 1st January, they'll join our company. Of course, that's great for them because they get, you know, first-time knowledge, but it's great for me because I get, you know, a great opportunity to interview and see, you know, young people in action, and then I can choose the best of that. So it's a little bit of a selfish motive as well, I won't deny it. Second thing we did with the university, we noticed that, again, they weren't street smart. They didn't know what the latest chemicals were. These students, they were very clever on the books. They didn't know what seeds were there. They didn't know what new types of tractors were available. So again, I said, Laure, I said, do I complain and make noise and sit back and cry about it? Or so what we did where Thule was witnessing the agreement, we actually have we're going to invest €500,000 of our own money, Elgon money, and we're going to put a center at Kebete. I don't know if you guys play golf, but there's a vet lab golf course. So just before that they've given us really close to about 20 or 30 acres. They've given us a huge bit of land, not to us, but allocated from the university space. The drawings are now ready. We're about to sign them with Professor Kiama, who's the Vice Chancellor. Once he signs the drawings off, we will go into construction and we will build them for them, a really cool innovation center. And the idea of that, and maybe that's where Laure and maybe Vincent, you guys can help me, we want to bring private sector and academia together. So that if Dudutech or, you know, Twiggles or any of your companies are interested in shaping young minds, you know, we're part of the curriculum in that university. So you come and demonstrate what your product does. You can have field days there. They've given us, you know, 20, 30, 50 acres. You can, you know, showcase, like, as a drone company who's interested in working with us. A MasterCard Foundation wants to work with us. It's an excellent opportunity for French companies to work with us so that young students can know what your products are. So hopefully, if everything works out, January we break ground, end of the year we will have a brand new center. I'm fully funding it. It's going to cost me a little bit of money, but I think it's going to add value to the students of this country. Again, a little bit of selfish motive. I'm hoping some of these guys will get smart at the end and come and work for Elgon or talk about Elgon out there. So I'm a businessman as well, so that's not a bad thing. But I think, fingers crossed, if this works out, it'll be great for the country as well. Thank you, Laure.
Thank you. So yeah, definitely another avenue for cooperation. Please keep us posted. I'm sure that we have the French Agro Club and the many French companies involved in this club will be definitely happy to participate and work with you on that. Speaking of innovation, of course, digital transformation is also a big topic. Thule, we mentioned that you are an expert of digital transformation. Yes, you are. And so you've been particularly involved in the digital transformation of the sector. So what role do you think digital innovations could play to transform or participate in the transformation of agriculture in Kenya?
Thanks, Laure. I think they play a massive role. Like we mentioned, there's many youth that are unemployed, and many have the tech skills, but need to recognize that there is value or there's opportunity in ag tech, right? And if you look at the investment that Airbus did with a local partner, we've already seen that there is a lot of work in digital advisory and the opportunity for youth employment in particular. I think what we need to stop looking at is just like Bimal has mentioned, and we always have this conversation, it's not just about food production in Kenya. It's where are we looking at post-harvest loss, like Pierre mentioned, and it's a number that we still keep battling with. We're losing at least 40% of food products grown in Kenya, right? So that's massive opportunity, and that's where it's ripe for innovation. Looking at how to consolidate the supply chain, market access, and then even access to the export markets. And then finally in production and processing, specifically in tea, we export 60% of our tea unprocessed. And unprocessed for us is not packaged, not blended. It is just tea leaves, dried and ground. And I think that is where we have a big opportunity for processing and production and some innovation in this space. Thank you. Oh, and of course in tea and coffee as well, right? So we need to make sure, I mean, not much of our coffee is drank in Kenya. It's actually exported. We drink 10% of what we produce. So I think that's also another area where there's great opportunity for innovation and processing. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. And for this, I think there is also opportunities for sharing of best practices between our two countries. And this is the very last part of this conversation. I know that we are running a bit late, so thanks for the panelists to just provide me very short answers on that. So I would like to start with you, Pierre. So as a Pan-African investor, I suppose you have screened many companies in the agriculture and food fields. Are there any particular innovative models across the continent that you would like to share with us, and that in your view could bring relevant responses?
Short answer, right? Have you heard of Toolkit iSkills? So it's a good. Beyond that, so we've screened over the continent more than 10,000 companies, most of them in the food sector. So yes, of course, we've seen great innovation. The key target is which one of them are going to go execute at scale. This was your point earlier. And maybe three type of innovation that I see. Food affordability. So to limit the number of intermediaries, I speak of Twiga, but you have Kiosks, you have Wasoko, Trade Depot, Africa Map, Top Up Mama. You have so many of them. All of them are trying to crack the model to make it sustainable, and I think this is really some area of innovation to simplify the market. Food quality and nutrition, access to more and sustainable protein is a key one. Aquaculture, animal feed, I know this is the new administration, a key focus on that. And there is plenty of innovation that we can find here. Insect-based one, you have Synergy, you have Insectipro, you have all of them that are trying to crack that as well. Fascinating topic. And then you have preservation and productivity. We mentioned that against the food waste to increase yields. Companies like Culture, Muthoni, Apollo Agriculture that are all trying, thanks to tech, to increase the tools to the farmers in terms of data decision support and so on, to basically do not skip the smallholder farmers, but enable them to make a good living by having higher sustainable yield. I'll pause that, but I'll be happy to share more of the list.
Thank you, Pierre, and great to see that there are indeed innovative models across the region and the continent that need help to scale up. Benjamin, Speaking of sharing of best practices, in your views, how can BioLine, agrosciences and Dudutech can mutually benefit from their respective innovations and expertise? So, in other words, what does BioLine bring to Dudutech and vice versa?
So, of course, BioLine acquisition of Dudutech is far away from a financial asset where you just invest by a company and accept some dividends. How BioLine bring value to Dudutech, I would say first by bringing new technology, a product range to Kenya. Across the year, BioLine developed certain technologies that are about to be imported to Kenya through Dudutech. It takes a bit of time because there are some homologation and registration, a normal process, but bringing new solution for yield improvement. I would say number 2 would be technical advice, technical support from our experts at BioLine. We have an R&D center in Sofia Fisheries, and people are starting working on Kenyan problematics. In terms of expertise, you can speak about both sales advice, like problematics that farmers face, and how we can bring know-how for BioLine colleagues into this problematic, but also internal advice on productivity, way of method of production, manufacturing process, etc. So more like from my operating process part. Number 3, I have to mention financial support. After the acquisition of BioLine, after the acquisition of Dudutech by BioLine, we input a fair amount of money into production capacity, hiring new people, and leveraging our manufacturing sites to the standard of the industry. And probably number 4, that is rarely mentioned because it's not very fancy, but for me good to mention after a few months in Kenya, the strength of getting a big group as Indigo within Dudutech is the capacity to bring administrative know-how, bring HR process, financial process, also strengthen this company through cash easement is very important for us, as if we were a lonely company carved out in Kenya. So we use the strength of the group to be able to offer better service. And let me on that part answer to Lydia, because part of the commitment from BioLine and Indigo Group within Kenya was, of course, benefits from the Dudutech company, but of course we have to face the fact that we have some commitment now with Kenyan people. We, yes, do some welfare activity, but there is, of course, much more to do. So thanks to face that, and never forget that what Kenya brings us, BioLine Indigo also has to bring to Kenya. That was what BioLine brings to Kenya. Now what Kenya Dudutech brings to BioLine. First of all, access to African markets. Dudutech developed over the last 20 years, presence in 8 countries in East Africa, and we are ready to develop much more countries. Number 2, new technologies. Yes, Dudutech developed by their own product range called anthropathogenic fungi and anthropathogenic nematodes, which are product lines that BioLine, even with their 40 or 50 years of experience, didn't develop. And we were very happy to now being able to get this technology in our northern hemisphere market. So I hope and I know my Kenyan colleagues are extremely proud to know that the products that developed by their own here in Naivasha are now sold in berries in California, in organic vegetable in Spain, in horticultural business in the Netherlands, which are very, very high level of agronomy, and those people don't joke with the quality of the farm input. And yes, we do have a Kenyan product here competing with northern hemisphere products, so that's a very great achievement. What also BioLine enjoy with Dudutech is also localized talent, people with strong and deep know-how on how to do farming in this region, and that today is useful to develop sales in Africa, but tomorrow could be very useful to develop also our presence in other markets with comparative agricultural techniques, where let's say if one day Bahrain goes to South America, probably we could find some similarity with doing agriculture in Kenya that might be useful. So I have biology colleague, I have scientific colleague, I have entomologist colleague, I have agronomist colleague here in Kenya. They will be able to share their know-how to the Bahrain group. Biotech is located in a 16 hectares manufacturing site. It's quite labor intensive, it's quite surface intensive, and we are able to enjoy almost year-long good condition to farm and to produce our doudous all year long. So that's of course a very big strength. Yeah.
So a great example of a win-win partnership and investment, I would say. Also happy to pay you a visit sometime and organize another conversation at Digitech in Naivasha. Vincent, as I mentioned, you've been working for over 20 years at the Ministry of Agriculture in France and overseas. Any best practices you've seen, you've witnessed, that you would like to mention or share with us as we will close this panel?
Yes, so maybe shortly, our two examples or 2 points. Definitively, I think there could be a strong partnership with other solutions and approaches. Solutions, genetic, agtech, food tech, those are key sectors I think we could better look at. And we know that in Kenya the ecosystem is very dynamic in this sector. We have to do more with food tech. And in France also, I think the ecosystem is pretty dynamic. The French government will invest a lot during the 10 next years in innovation in this sector. And innovation in the sector in France has to be done and to be built also with collaboration abroad to tackle all the context and so on. So definitely, I think this is a key sector to work in. We had a very good summit a few weeks ago, the CIAL in Paris. I'm sure that Kenyan companies went there. This week we have a very strong event in France, a CIMA on AgTech. I hope also some Kenyan companies are there, but this is examples to how to build a partnership and to showcase on each side. Approaches, I think this is also something we have to discuss more, because solution is something, but after that we have to merge everything, and innovation is also innovation in the organization. We mentioned value chain. I don't like this word, or I don't know how to translate in English what we call filière in France. That means, I would say, it's a collective approach. So that means it's not each actor thinking about value addition, it's each actor thinking about common interest to tackle environmental issue, economic issue, and so on. And for that, in France we have strong interbranch organization, gathering seed producers to clients at the end. And you mentioned Bimal, the potato value chain. I think this is a good example to say, okay, we come to do this, we have to sit on the table with all the actors, from seed providers to clients, to know what are the needs, what are the key actors, what are the needs in terms of processing or freezing and so on. And on seed, for sure, you need specific seed to address this issue. So it's not simple. We do this, for example, on soya, we do this on other production, but I think it's good to have this common approach, collaborative approach, and sometimes it's not solution, it's just thinking about together about what are the main and common interests, and this is also something that we can discuss on.
Thanks, Vincent. So we're coming to the end of this panel, but before we end, I could not end the conversation without referring to the news. So the transformation of agri-food system will be hopefully at the heart of the COP27 agenda that is currently taking place in Egypt. So Lydiah, this last question will be for you. As a social entrepreneur in the agri-food business, what
would be your main expectations and wishes from the leaders of the world all gathered in Egypt?
Thank you for your question. I expect to hear discussions around renewable energy. And to be precise, how do we upscale agrivoltaic systems? That is combining solar energy and agri-systems. I'm looking at the young man or the young woman at Kiambu, Laikipia, Turkana, that cannot be able to start any agri-value chain using the grid, using electricity. It is damn expensive. So how then can we be able to scale up solar? We are talking about that young man and that woman using the solar-powered pump to irrigate the to irrigate their land and produce food. I'm looking at the young men and the young women upscaling the technology and embracing the solar-powered cold storage systems, solar dryers, in ensuring we have food in the globe. So I expect to hear a lot on renewable energy so that we ensure that when it comes to food security, we don't leave anyone behind, because some cannot achieve, some cannot be able to get access to use power in ensuring that there is food on the table. So for me, that I'll be home safe and dry when I hear what our government will be able to do in upscaling solar and bringing it close home, where the young people and the young women will be able to tap into it and be able to produce food towards food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. So I would like to give a huge thank you to our panelists today, Vincent Apt, Bimal, Dr. Bimal Kantaria, Thule Lenneiye, Pierre Fauvet, Benjamin Deruel, and Lydiah Muthoni. I think my key takeaway from this panel will be that there is definitely a willingness to work together, both from the public sector, from the social enterprise point of view, from the private sector, French private sector, investor, all the mechanisms are here. So I will encourage you now to follow up on the conversation to help solve the very concrete problem of these young men or women.
My question is for Monsieur Pierre. I believe you said, I think he's the major shareholder in Twiga. So this is for like an aspiring farmer with a chunk of land, a small chunk of land. Is there a possibility for Twiga to work directly with this farmer without using any middlemen? And what would be the qualifications you'd be looking for, you know, in terms of the quality of food produced, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thank you. I love aspiring farmers. And this is a concrete question, so I can give you my contact agenda. Just, yes, this is the target, to basically stop or facilitate one connection between the small informal vendors, and this is 70% of the volume of food sold in Kenya. It's 90% of the volume of food sold in other sub-Saharan African countries. So giving access directly to informal vendors is key. And if you can have just one link between Twiga or the solutions between the farmers, this is key. So yes, this is exactly the solution.
Hi, my name is Faith. I work alongside Dr. Paris in Hamilton Heights. Okay. Our country is mainly, like the areas that have the largest land is the drought places. Is there a way we can work with those lands to to foster our food production instead of just the small areas in Central and Rift Valley. We can grow drought-resistant crops. We can make our areas up. We can uplift our food production in Kenya if we target all land areas. Thank you.
Don't fight to answer the question.
I think both Bimal and I have an answer to that. Yes, that's again I like short answers. Yes. We've already identified, like I mentioned, in our land commercialization initiative, most of our land is in the Assam areas. Galana Kulalu, for example, it's 1.4 million acres in between Kilifi and Tana River counties, and that's up north where there's not a lot of, well, there's a river going through it. But yes, we're looking at increasing drought-tolerant crops production. Sorghum and millet in particular, I think those are, as we call them, the forgotten crops, because we're so focused on maize, rice, and wheat. But you know, there has to be a shift, and I think it's now us making, well, government-owned land is now being made available specifically for those crops, and also increasing what we call regenerative livestock production. Don't ask me what that is technically. I know it's like making sure that it's cyclical and, you know, managing biogas and waste in particular. And increasing efficiency on livestock production, because in those communities as well, that's also the main, what we call value chain, or main commodity that they have, right, in agriculture. So yes, in short answer is yes.
So mine is also two-pronged. One is, as ASNET, we're openly supporting the GMO debate. We're saying we're very happy with it, and part of that is to bring in a little bit of more drought-resistant crops, bring in BT cotton. We're very excited about the whole GM, and we've been part of that discussion for the last 10 years. So when somebody says there's a reason why did President Ruto announce it so quickly, this has been going on for the last 10 years, and private sector has been fully involved in the discussions. The second, of course, is we talk about dry areas, but livestock is extremely critical. If you look at what's happening with the camel business, I think Kenya has got close to 1 million camels. Obviously, it's herdsmen and Somalis in the north are running it. But now we're exporting camels to Saudi, and we have specially made ships that carry camels from Kenya across the waters. So there's so much happening in this country. It's just as underreported. But really, I think anything we do in this country with private sector, we have to be extremely proud of. We're under a lot of pressure, we do extremely well. So yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Morning, my name is Asif Nurani. I work for IMB, which is an investment fund based in Paris, but investing across Africa. We made an investment in a company called iProcure, which is an agri-input distributor. And one of the discussions we've been having, and I like the discussion on solar, but just to take it a bit further, is a discussion which is now a hot topic on climate change and how to incorporate agri into the climate change discussion. And sometimes I sort of feel like we're going back and forth, and I was upset about the talk about things like Shamba system, which I have my own views on. But apart from that, and then that can be part of the discussion, but apart from that, how do you actually make agriculture and agribusiness conform to climate standards and find the balance between food security and sustainability for human beings and the sustainability of the planet into the future, especially because, you know, we are living in a region where we probably produce 1% of the pollution and are going to be affected by, you know, whatever's happening elsewhere in the world.
Maybe quickly, just one question, one response. Livestock sector. I think to tackle the issue of contributing to reducing the effect on climate change, to optimize the resource in terms of productivity of livestock, milk, meat production, for example. I think this is key. How to reduce the number of cattle, but to produce more with them, with a better optimization of the resource, of the grass, of the feed, and so on. And this is something that can be done and has to be done because it's also an adaptation. So we can do both in the meantime with the agricultural sector, and this is, I think, very interesting to look at when we speak about challenge on climate change.
I want to add, I think Vincent is looking at me specifically because we have had a discussion about agroecology and agroecology is literally growing trees for both food and for climate mitigation and adaptation. So we have to shift our conversation from the continent just being focused on mitigation. And I appreciate solar because I participate in solar, but I think it's now adaptation with mitigation projects that we now need to look at. How do we then utilize cashew nuts? How do we grow a lot more macadamia? How do we have a more holistic view than just being, now we want to focus on, I know livestock is one of the critical areas we need to look at, and to be honest, closer to 3% that we actually contribute to because of our livestock industry. And so we need to look at more regenerative, more productive ways of producing for our livestock industry, both on dairy, meat, and the leather side. So I think there's a lot of conversation and unpacking to be done in that regard.
There's a lot of, it's a key question, thanks that I think that we need to find and to push for solutions that are both answering the food security issue and that are both helping in the fight for climate change and not opposing the two. And there are some solutions that I can give you just one example, like for instance biochar. This type of solutions to be carbon captive and both a good fertilizer. This can answer two issues at the same time. So it's just one answer that cannot fully answer your issue, but I'm sure that tomorrow we'll find more of those. And Europe is searching, Africa is searching. I think Kenya can be at the forefront of this topic and tackle that. This will be a great way to demonstrate to the world that solutions can be found here.
Yeah, I also need to bring my piece of answer. But yeah, definitely yield improvements is part of the answer. If we can help farmers to be able to get a bit more per hectare, a bit more per square meter, we're using the same amount of resources, we will crack it. It's just mathematical, so all the industry needs to be focused on how we can improve the yield that we produce. On top of that, we also, as a manufacturer, we should also think of how do I produce, like looking at myself. Should I just say that now I'm producing beneficial insects, so I am helping the grower to reduce the amount of fertilizer and chemical and that's it? Or should I also look at myself and say, okay, how can I produce better? And one of the initiatives we took as we are based in Lydiah is to run and use more and more geothermal energy as a clean source of energy. So huge investment at the beginning, but for sure a long payback for us and the next generation.
Yes. Food production can be part of climate fix. And our answer lies in regenerative agriculture. And that's what we are doing at Toolkit iSkills, organic farming. National Resources Defense Council of 2022 revealed that regenerative agriculture actually contributes to a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 20%. So our answer is in regenerative agriculture, climate smart, ensuring food. Thank you.
Thanks. So we take one last question, and I think that Cyprian Cabis has raised his hand since like 20 minutes. Sorry, but I encourage you then to stay and continue the conversation. Don't be frustrated. Unfortunately, at some point, we have also to be conscious of time, but this is only the beginning of the discussion, right? So Cyprian, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Laure. My name is Cyprian Cabis. I'm the CEO of the Cooperatives in Eastern Africa, and we're in the space of testing inspection and certification. My question goes to Thule, and this regards the current conversation about GMO, and I'm quite happy that Bimal has just mentioned it, that this has been a work in progress over a period of time now. Now, my concern, and I think this is the question that people are asking, is if the intention is really to go that direction, and we know that within the food supply chain, there are certain supply chains that must still be protected, so we ensure that that does not contaminate the unintended supply chains. And we are also conscious of the fact that as a country, we are also trading with other partners. And within those countries, partner countries, they still have these restrictions of GMO, etc., etc. We are exporting a lot of products to Europe, horticultural products to Europe. Again, there are still restrictions, some of those destinations. As a country, what are we doing to put in place control mechanism that will ensure that this kind of cross-contamination to the intended supply chain is actually guarded? And what kind of message are we giving to our trading partners to give them assurance that we are not going to bring GMO foods into your countries? It's only going to stay in Kenya, I think.
That's a tough question, especially that second part. Because France, for example, is anti-GMOs. Okay. So the focus is mostly on food crops for staple food production, right? And then on cotton, because we've already done a post-release mechanism for BT cotton, and the intention is to then, like Bimal mentioned, it was not to say we're going to contaminate and cross-contaminate. So we have had a number of sessions with CALRO, which is our livestock and research organization. We're sitting with the Kenya National Biosafety Authority to ensure that we have the right mechanisms in place for what we call post-release monitoring and ensuring mitigation of cross-contamination. But we're also being very specific about targeted value chains. So looking at rice, wheat, and maize as the favorites, for example. In terms of the exports, we won't be encouraging GMO seeds for horticulture products, for example, right? Like we said, it's focused just on the food security aspect and then increasing productivity in the ASAL communities because, for example, we have one GMO product that's being looked at for beans. It's a high iron variety, but I doubt that we're going to be exporting it to France, for example. It's for local consumption and mostly also for feedstock production. So there will be communication coming out. I think government has been a little bit slow. If you remember, it kind of happened at a point where cabinet was still being installed. So the technical teams are working on it. But thank you for that, Cyprian.
Okay, thank you to all. Sorry, I think it's already 10:30 and we are coming to the end of this conversation. So I would like to ask one more thing for you. This is to take 1 minute to fill for us this feedback survey that is so important for us at the French Chamber to know if the events that we are organizing are relevant and interesting to you. So as I said, this is only the beginning of the conversation, but please keep in mind that there is only one way to be aware of the next steps. It's simply to become a member of the French Chamber of Commerce in Kenya, and I will be more than happy, as well as Allo from my team, to give you more information about that. I would like to close this session with a huge round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. I'm wishing you a very good day ahead. Thank you.